Jelle,
Ja.
kan jij het in de gaten houden?
Yes.
Ik ga even op mijn laptop kijken of alles goed zit.
This is for us to show how much time they have left.
Alright.
So we need to keep it. We need to like measure it ourselves.
Alright. They're already late.
Yep.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Ravencoin Meet-Up. I'm going to give a brief introduction of our event and then move on to our speakers. First, I would like to ask to raise hands if you are familiar with Ravencoin protocol. All right, great, good. So, without further ado, let's quickly. How can I change the slides? Before we start, big shout out to our sponsors. First of all, this Expo Europe, thank you, who was kind enough to host us here. And then Ravencoin Shop, who's going to give some giveaways. We will get that in our last session of questions and answers. And THS, who's supporting our community. And of course, the Ravencoin community who pulled this off. And we have 3 speakers and 1 panel discussion where we take questions and answers. First is John Black, who is the lead developer of Ravencoin. Then we have Nathan Bull, a community developer from Ravenland. We have Miles Manley from Cellcore, and Michael, who will be leading our panel discussion and taking questions and answers. This will be the giveaway prizes that we will be giving out in question and answer session. And the organizers standing around here, and we will help you pull this through. We'll also be at the after party, so anyone interested, join us. It will be in the Blockchain Expo's official after party. And without further ado, I'll introduce us. Ravencoin's lead developer, John Black.
My name is John Black. I'm the lead core developer for Ravencoin. So
I expected actually a larger contingent of people who are actually people who know about Ravencoin, so I'll cover that a little bit more than I had intended to. So Ravencoin is a coin that was originally a code fork of Bitcoin, and has been added to that. We've added the ability to create your own asset. So for people who are familiar with the crypto space, very similar to an ERC20 token that you can create it very quickly and easily, just by entering information like what your coin name is, how many you want, and paying 500 Raven, which is about right now about $30, maybe $35, and you get your own token. And what your token means and what it's for, that will be up to you. So that's a super brief introduction. So I'm going to skip from there to thanking the Ravencoin community. So this was very, very generous of them. They were able to fly me out. I live in Utah, United States, and they paid via Raven to basically fly me out here and to speak to all of you wonderful people. And I really, really appreciate it. I want to start by telling a story of Blockbuster and Netflix. So how many of you are familiar with Blockbuster, the former movie rental place? Maybe half, okay. So Blockbuster is the largest video rental company. They had about 9,000 stores. And Netflix, how many are familiar with Netflix? It's on most of your smart televisions nowadays. You log in and you can stream movies. But before that, they rented DVDs via mail. So these two have been in competition to some degree for a while, with Blockbuster being the much larger dominant player for some time. In fact, in 2000, the CEO or the founder of Netflix, Reed Hastings, went to Blockbuster and tried to partnership and tried to say, hey, we'll be part of your streaming features, or you can buy us for $50 million, or we want to do a partnership with you. And at the time, John Atieko, I think is his name, said, no, we're okay with the largest. This is not a partnership we want. So Reed Hastings flew home, and then after that, today there is, well, in fact, last March, meaning just a few months ago, the second to the last Blockbuster closed its doors, leaving one Blockbuster. There were 9,000 spread across the world, 9,000 stores, 9,000 physical stores to rent videos. There's now one. It's in Bend, Oregon. So that's the story of Blockbuster and then Netflix. There's a reason I'm telling this story, because there's a comparison between Blockbuster and Netflix, and between banks and crypto. So this is the comparison with Blockbuster and Netflix. So Blockbuster, actually, one of the reasons they didn't want to sell, they were making most of their money from late fees. People who rented videos and then just didn't return them in time. So they had to continue paying day after day. You needed a VHS tape per renter, so you needed to have physical inventory. You required stores, physical stores. People go into it, pick up the tapes. I was using legacy technology, VHS, and then later DVDs, so renting those. It was less efficient per renter than Netflix. And then they wouldn't partner with Netflix, whereas Netflix tried to partner with Blockbuster. And at the time, and this probably changed over time, not as arrogant now, but at the time when they had 9,000 outlets, when they were top of the world, they didn't really want to partner with Netflix. Netflix, on the other hand, no late fees, no benefits from the network effect. The more people use crypto, or rather, I get to mix with movies, the more network effect there is, the faster bandwidth goes, etc. You get network effect, and you get it's just more efficient. It's obviously, you don't have to rewind tapes, you don't have to leave your couch, that kind of thing. It's virtual, it benefits from scale. It's using the new technology, new capabilities. It's more efficient per renter. They tried to partner with Blockbuster, but not the other way around. And in this case, Netflix is also super flexible. I don't know if you remember, the original Netflix was renting DVDs via mail. And then switched, they said, what's going to disintermediate us, right? We're doing pretty good business renting these videos by mail, but eventually streaming is going to take over. And so they disintermediated themselves. They make that transition themselves. I believe they still have both of these running, but obviously the dominant one is the streaming. I'm going to run some comparisons. We have banks, and I use Ravencoin up here, but we can generically use cryptocurrencies. So banks, they make money from high fees. High fees of transmitting money, of doing remittances, of just charging extra for various services and things like that. It's slow, using older technology, 2 to 3 days to ACH. Some people in Europe probably aren't experiencing this as much. I think move money moves a little bit faster over here than it does in the US, but 2 to 3 days to move if you're going not within one bank, but between banks, it's 2 to 3 days. And then wire transfers, they move pretty fast, but you're kind of limited to banking hours. It requires branches, physical branches, people to walk in, sign documents, etc. They're using legacy technology, more cost per user because you need more branches, more places for people to physically go. You wouldn't partner with crypto, similar to the way that Blockbuster wouldn't partner with Netflix. And arrogant. At the peak, they're at 92,000 branches. The fastest decline in branches was actually last year. I don't think we have the numbers for this year, but 1,700 branches were closed last year. So Ravencoin, or crypto in general, tiny network fees. You can move a large amount of money for a very, very small amount, or a large amount of value for a very, very small fee. Benefits from the network effect. The more people that are using it, the better it is. It's virtual, benefits from scale. It's using new technology, new capabilities, meaning specifically the blockchain technology, which came about on January 3rd of 2009 with the introduction of Bitcoin. More value per additional user. The more people are using it, the faster and better it goes. And crypto, not necessarily Ravencoin specifically, has tried to partner with banks and hasn't had a lot of success. And I can kind of understand why banks would be a little nervous, but that's kind of what's happening. And then cryptocurrency is very flexible. It's being used for different things and is kind of adapting to its environment. So anyway, that's the story. Just wanted to draw the comparisons between kind of a legacy technology and one that perhaps thinks it's in the catbird seat for forever. And that isn't always true because of the fact that networking and network effects can dominate all of those advantages or all of that strength and power and shift things fairly quickly, meaning in a matter of years. So anyway, that's the story of Blockbuster and Netflix and banks and crypto. So I'll switch now over to Ravencoin. So Ravencoin, I mentioned this earlier, was a code fork of Bitcoin. So it acted like Bitcoin originally. It has a token, it has a value. You can purchase it various places, Verb-based. You can go find it on Binance, Bittrex, things like that. Places you can find crypto typically. If you're not, and I don't know what the scope of this audience is, since this is kind of an Internet of Things and an AI forum. But if you haven't seen crypto, basically there's exchanges, there's places you can buy it. Each of these coins, and there are thousands of them. Ravencoin is in the top 50, but there's thousands of them, and you can go purchase them from various exchanges with dollars, euros, different currencies, or get Bitcoin and then trade it. So Ravencoin hatched on October 31st of 2017 as an idea. It was introduced by Bruce Fenton. He's the former executive director of the Bitcoin Foundation, and he introduced the concept as a Medium post. It was launched about 3 months later on January 3rd of 2018. That was on Bitcoin's 9th birthday, so just about a year and a half ago. It's mined into existence. I'm going to cover Ravencoin just a little bit more than I intended to. Like I said, I expect this to be mostly people familiar with Ravencoin. It's mined into existence. So what that means is no one's sitting there saying, I have a big bucket of Ravencoin, give me dollars for it. It means that the people who run the network, to check all the transactions, who verify that everything is kosher, that no Ravencoin's been created out of thin air, that all the transactions are signed properly, those people work on a puzzle, and that puzzle basically, when they solve that puzzle, they get to verify a block and validate that all the transactions are done properly, and they get 5,000 Ravencoin. That happens every minute, regularly, every minute. If there's more people working on this solution, more people helping, more people solving this puzzle, then it'll make the puzzle just a little bit more difficult, and it'll continue to clock along at 1 minute intervals. If you're familiar with Bitcoin, Bitcoin has the same cadence or similar cadence. It's just on a 10-minute cadence. And so from that time, that network has been running just fine since January 3rd of 2018. And since that time, we've been working on clients so that you can get Raven. When you purchase it, you can send it to yourself. We have a Windows client, Mac client, Linux client, iOS, Android, and web. You can download these. Just look for like Ravencoin Wallet. You can go to ravencoin.org and download the wallets for Windows, Mac, and Linux. And then we have a web client as well. So after we launched, and the original plan, so this isn't just a copy of Bitcoin. So there are lots of copies of Bitcoin out there. Not to rag on any particular one. The biggest ones is Litecoin, also a great coin, but basically it just is a token that has a value. Litecoin is. So in November of last year, we added the ability to create your own asset. I mentioned this earlier, but you can create your own token. What that means is you go and choose a name, choose a quantity, and then you own those tokens, and you can send them. They're counterfeit-proof tokens that you can send to other people. And you fully own, however, when you create, it costs you 500 Raven to create any amount between 1 and 21 billion, and then you own them. What their value is really up to you. Are they a gift card? Are they clean on your time? Things like that. So it really depends on the value. They move and transmit just like Bitcoin. So here's some of the uses for assets. So you can make them gift cards, a rewards program, tokens that represent property, credits. You can tie them to gold. You can put gold in the safe. This token named gold, or gold token, it represents gold that's in the safe. Software licenses, game items like swords, skins, etc. Contractual obligations. This will give you a sense of the crowd. How many of you know what ICO means? Okay. All right. Probably definitely more than half, maybe 3/4. So an ICO is just an initial coin offering. It's people offering tokens, and they usually had a white paper and a plan, and it was like raising money. In the U.S., it was illegal, and so an STO is basically an ICO, but with the legal wrappers and all of the restrictions and requirements and potentially legal regulated entities that go around that. So those are coming. They're a little bit slower because it takes a little while to get that legal framework in place and the issuance. At least in the U.S., it's limited to who can purchase them. Can also represent reservation tokens. Some of these are securities under U.S. law, and many of them are not. They can also represent certificates of authenticity. So you create a token, there's only one of them, and it moves with the art or the item that has a limited quantity of them. Babysitting credits, local currency for a town, stable coin, utility token, Kickstarter placeholders, stocks, etc. So lots of ideas. There's lots of people building around and on top of Ravencoin using these tokens. And so we'll talk about that later. So for tokens, you need wallets. We have built Linux, Mac, Windows core client, which basically means it kind of has all the features, but maybe isn't the easiest to use. And so other people have come along and built ones that are prettier, mobile, maybe not quite as feature-laden because they don't support all of the nitty-gritty features that you need for a core client. But so sort of the last 2 or 3 months, all of these have come out for Ravencoin. So Zelcore, I won't touch on that much because we have Miles here. He's going to talk more about Zelcore. Exodus wallet is available for Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android. Spend wallet, I'll talk about that more a little bit. That allows you to spend your crypto via a Visa debit card. Trust wallet. How many are familiar with Binance, the crypto exchange? About half. So this is their official wallet. Trust wallet is Binance's official wallet. They purchased it. They got a great coin recently. Kobo wallet is very popular in China. So we recently did an AMA for them. And there's a new one coming soon. I can't name it yet because we haven't announced that yet. So here's Zelcore. You'll recognize this one. Get more on that. Here's Exodus wallet. So a lot of these are multi-coin wallets, meaning they support multiple coins. So they have a whole list of coins. A lot of them have the ability to exchange one coin into another within the wallet. They'll go through an exchange to do that. Trust Wallet is the one from Binance. Kobo Wallet is the one that's very popular in China. Mango Farms. This one's super interesting. So this one is web-based. It allows you to just log into your web browser. It will give you your 12 words. The 12 words basically is your key. You write that down as your backup. What that means for the people who aren't crypto savvy yet is your transactions are signed by your private key. Your private key is a secret number that only you know. A lot of times you can encode that into 12 words, or at least a seed that creates your private key into 12 words. You write those 12 words down, and that way if something goes horribly wrong, including the wallet that you're storing your assets in, goes away completely. Meaning it disappears from the planet, they're gone, whatever, asteroid, something like that. You still have your 12 words, and you can recover your funds. It's a little bit tricky, and there's different ways to do it, but someone who's tech savvy can basically take those 12 words and recover your funds. So Mango Farm Wallet supports both our mainnet and our testnet, and also supports assets. So the ability to transfer these tokens that you created on your own. It also, this is a fairly new feature, so Trezor mode allows you to take a hardware wallet. How many familiar with Trezor? Okay, in about half. So Trezor is a little hardware device that stores your private key. And so it doesn't really ever go onto your computer. So what happens is the website makes your transaction. You say, I want to transfer this many assets or this many Raven. And it says, okay, I need somebody to sign this, and I don't have the keys. I need somebody to sign it. And what it'll do is send that transaction through the USB port to your Trezor hardware device, and it'll pop and say, sure you want to sign this? You say yes. The key never leaves this hardware device. It's never on your computer. The big advantage of that is if your computer is 100% compromised, it's not going to, you're not going to lose your funds. They're not going to see your keys. It's signed by this little hardware device. You can keep on the keychain. Mango Farm supports that, not for assets, but for Raven itself. Spend app. So I understand this is becoming soon for Europe, but currently in the US, you can take cryptocurrencies. I think there's about 17 cryptocurrencies that this supports. You can send them to this app. So this wallet is a custodial wallet. And what that means is they hold your funds. So if you've heard the term, not your keys, not your funds, it basically means you put it in someone else's control. It's a little bit at risk. Meaning if something happens to them, your funds are gone. This is a custodial wallet, however, relatively safe. You send your funds there, and it'll add up your funds, show you how much you have, etc. But the real value of this, and the real reason they have to be a custodial wallet, is you can get a debit card, a physical debit card or a virtual debit card, and you can swipe that card pretty much anywhere around the world. I've used it here just to test it. Here in Europe, I live in the United States. And I'll swipe it, I'll swipe for euros, and the euro to US conversion automatically sell enough of my either Bitcoin Cash or Ravencoin. I usually put it on Bitcoin Cash, sell that, keep the Ravencoin, sell that instantly, the exact amount, and we'll pay through the Visa rails, we'll pay for whatever I'm buying at the grocery store. Anyway, very cool app that's recently added Ravencoin. So Ravencoin also has a whole bunch of a few explorers and APIs. Explorer is a way to see. Is a way to see your crypto and how much you have. It's also the wallets can use the APIs, application programming interface. These are open. Basically, send a wallet address and ask for how many Raven are in this wallet or how many assets are in this wallet. We'll get that information back. So we have another one based on Blockbook. This is also Trezor's API, so we've got that. Both of those are available. And you can, we even have AMIs, which are AWS images that you can spin up and create one of these of your own if you want to run your own API, and then hit that if you're building a wallet, something like that. This is Ravencoin Asset Explorer. This shows you all the people that are creating assets, what assets are being transferred, how many people own each asset type. At the time of this is an old snapshot. So there's 19,000 plus assets that have been created on Ravencoin. Some of them are just squatting on names, some of them are actual real assets. This is some of the exchanges we're on. It's not fully updated. More get added each month. But you can trade Ravencoin for different cryptocurrencies on these exchanges. Some are in the US, some are in Europe, some are in Asia. We were recently added to, recently on the Ravencoin was featured on Block Magazine on the cover. You can go see that at blockjournal.io. It was the winner of ADBFN's most exciting new coin of 2019. I think 2 of the ADBFN people are here. Lunch with them. Ravencoin Girl. So there's been 10 songs. This is just the craziest thing. We've got a super fan out there who's a professional musician. She's made parody songs and original songs. We have CDs here. We give out CDs if you want one. See my wife Monica over here, she'll give you a song. It has 7 of the 10 songs. The other ones are available. You can get them. Well, just look up Ravencoin Girl and it'll point you to her songs. And then the superhero icon. So what's next? Dividends and rewards. So these are on our roadmap. This is probably sort of more insider baseball for people who are Raven fans and like, what's next for Ravencoin? The ability, if you were creating a company and you issued shares, if you will, and you would like to pay people dividends, you can issue those in Raven back to the address of the people who own those shares. That's being worked on by the community. Messaging and memos. This has been a long-awaited feature. It's on testnet now, which is the ability to send messages to the people who are holding your tokens, like, hey, we want to have a vote, or hey, we want to weigh in on this, or contact me, we're making changes, something like that. Memos is the ability to send with every transaction, every Ravencoin transaction, to put a message as large as you want, because it actually goes off the chain, connected to the chain, but immutable, but into IPFS, so you can send large messages to people or to yourself by sending Raven with a message attached, or asset with messages attached. Tags and restricted assets, people are waiting for this. This is the ability to do assets that can only move amongst tagged addresses. And this allows you to build a subset. This is helpful for securities type operation if you want to be regulated and have a regulated asset. Probably more important in the US than it is in other places. Lots of testing. So in order for us to move it to mainnet, we need to test this really big. There are some big changes. And then once we get through the first round of testing, make sure that there's no kind of easy to find bugs. We'll be adding bug bounties, which you'll get. If you're a developer, you can go look and you can join these bug bounties and basically earn money for finding anything that's kind of a critical bug. If you want to join the community, find out more, ravencoin.com, ravencoin.org, getravencoin.org. We have Twitter, Discords, Bitcoin Talk, Ravencoin Talk, Telegram, Reddit, GitHub, Wikis, Medium, all of these things. You can just learn more. There's tons of there. Super helpful people in all of those. A lot of people that will help are here in this audience today. And I don't know if I have any time left, but if there is even a minute, I will take questions. Yeah. Yeah.
Those assets only have virtual value, but how do you connect the virtual assets to the reality value, like the gold assets? I've seen a lot of gold assets in Ravencoin.
Yep.
But how do you make the connection?
Okay, so I will answer that question. Some people are sending assets to addresses that they find on the chain. So sometimes you'll just get an asset show up in your wallet. So Ravencoin is somewhat unique in that in many cases you can find out what that asset is. If you go to that Ravencoin Asset Explorer, click on that. If they have put metadata, and metadata is information about the token, you can find out what the token is. There's also the possibility that asset has no value at all. I mean, it says gold, but it's not really gold unless somebody's standing by and saying it is gold. That person's usually regulated, etc. So there is some of that where you get an asset. You can always burn that asset. You can throw it to an address that's gone. But people will send around assets because it's so easy to move around. That can happen. I think I am out of time. Hopefully that answered your question. Okay, so I will pass that along.
Hi everyone, we're going to have a question and answer later also. So if anyone does have more questions, then we can take the questions in half an hour or so. Yeah, ready for the next speaker? Adam, developer and a community member of Ravencoin from Ravenland. Very much.
Cheers, Eddie. Hey everyone, how's it going? Hopefully I can get you a little bit excited about Ravencoin. It's a real privilege and pleasure to give you this presentation, so thank you for everyone who's come. Who am I? Well, I'm Adam Bull. I'm the founder of Ravenland, a blockchain analyst and automation engineer. I was previously a Linux administrator at Ragspace and I was in Managed Cloud. Yeah, let's not spend too much time on that. What is Ravenland? Well, Ravenland is a blockchain software house. It's a very small team. There's only a few of us, being a part-time developer. We want to create the first community banner-owned platform as a service STL on Ravencoin. What that really means is we want to create an open retail platform where customers aren't held hostage by commercial equity groups or large retail companies. It's not something that is going to be easily done, but we hope that we get there eventually. We want to create an honest, completely non-debt-based economic system using Ravencoin. When I started working on Ravenland, I was just some guy in my parents' bedroom trying to understand what it really was. It's somewhat a non-debt-based economy, and that's one of our goals at Ravenland. And the other goal was to make it open source and to make it community-driven, which is just really making a cryptocurrency relevant to people in retail and commerce. Why is Ravencoin and IPFS? Why Ravencoin and IPFS? Well, this graph, you won't be able to see it, the growth of average web page size and number of objects, January 1995 to July 2014. We can see there is a hyperbolic exponential relationship between the demand for file systems and computers. This shouldn't be unexpected. We've already gone through the IBM personal computer revolution. We went from a period of using photocopiers, fax machines, and the 82086AT, the first computer, and that was what really created the internet. First, we had a bunch of computers that are all connected together, right? So how are you going to, they're all disconnected, so how are you going to connect them together into a larger system? And that was what the internet became. Those of us who were around at the time, it was just a point where no company could really agree how to do it. Does it sound familiar? No company can agree how to set up a network, and we see exactly the same effect in crypto, except that it's not a network, so to speak, but it's an ecosystem. And I see that word used all around, ecosystem. We want to build an ecosystem, an IoT ecosystem. But what does that look like? Well, with Ravencoin, it looks like Bitcoin, but with this thing called torrent technology attached. Now, I know a lot of people probably haven't described the technology in that way, but essentially, IPFS is a DHT network, so it's a dynamic hash table. It allows you to store the torrent, if you will, or the metadata hash onto the blockchain. What you can do with that is you can essentially link it to metadata. You can link it to your commercial data. It could be tickets for a train. It could be a lottery fund. It could be an assayer. It could be an assayer that wants to certify gold for your equity group or trade fund. It could be really a variety of things. But how do we actually define revolutionary software? What is revolutionary? And when can we expect the next revolution? Well, revolutionary software is what people associate with the Tech 500, right? All of those companies. But what they're actually using is they're using old technology. It's been around for 5 or 10 years. Like Python, MySQL, and Java, Ruby on Rails, like YouTube, and so on. So revolutionary software isn't really what language you use. It's what it lets people do with the already existing ones, right? So we can work out something from that. What does that really mean? It kind of means that revolutionary software isn't built on a new technology, it's built on a new concept. It lets people do something they never thought about doing before. You know, just think about that. Or something that maybe they never thought about ever doing. So yeah, Ravencoin is built on Bitcoin, which is a cryptographic currency, and IPFS, which is a torrent technology. They're both revolutionary technologies, I'm sure we can all agree about that. Ravencoin in its second layer, as you can see, there's a lot of different uses for the chain. I won't go into them too much detail, because it is a large presentation and there is a lot of slides, so I do apologise if I sound slightly like a crazy maniac going through them all. Configuring running a Ravencoin Linux wallet. For those that want to know more, and perhaps might want to experiment themselves, this slide is for you. As you can see at the bottom there, that's what the Raven debug log looks like. It tells you what's going on in the wallet. At the top there is the actual configuration for the wallet. So when we actually run the Raven daemon, that's the thing that gets loaded. You can actually pass them as a parameter in the command line. I won't go into it too much. I know that we're not all technical. But for those that are interested, this is how you do it. Installing Ravencoin. Installing and running Ravencoin is very easy to do. You can get up and running and you can start doing transactions with your retail store, or whether you're just a developer wanting to experiment, or if you just have a standard desktop wallet on your Windows machine, you can do it without doing any of this. Just create an IPFS hash on something like globalupload.io or the Ravenland upload service. I'm going to skip this slide. So Raven CLI help is your friend. If anyone wants to develop a Ravencoin, this is where I started. When I started, I knew nothing, and now I know a little bit. And I'm happy to share that with you. So what does the anatomy of a Ravencoin IPF hash actually look like? It looks like something like this. So you've got a contract URL, you've got a contract hash, you've got a symbol, you've got a name, you've got some kind of description. You're saying who's issued that asset, or perhaps maybe it's an assay certificate that you've linked in there. And if you've tagged that asset as unissuable, you'll never be able to change it. So it acts as a form of proof. So patenting, copywriting, anything like that. So this is making the Raven CLI call list assets. So we're listing some Ravenland, Ravenland matching names there at the top, and also a little query of Raven CLI list assets. You can do this in the Windows wallet as well under debug. So this is how you actually start to get data out. And here's an asset called Picard, very popular one. What does Picard actually look like? Well, we have to call the get asset data function to actually find out. And you can see we're told several important things by Ravencoin. First thing is the name, the amount, how many units you've got, whether it has an IPFS hash, maybe it doesn't. So we need to know that stuff. And then actually retrieving the IPFS hash. As we can see, we've got a nice Star Trek film here. We can receive information through the car or other tools. So we can literally use Ravencoin as a library, but we can also use it as a distributor. So this is a simple multi-test asset set that I put together. It's surprising, really. It's quite difficult to figure out how to do these things, but once you do, they're very easy. And hopefully that comes across in this presentation, and it can help people that want to develop a little bit more about it. So what does the Faucet app do? Well, it receives and sends assets to and from Ravencoin addresses. Fairly simple. But then we have something called Ravencoin RPC lib. This is just like an include function that we call in our script, like a standard website would in PHP. And all we do is we programmatically send tracks to that asset name and address. So this is something that someone could set up in 10 minutes or so, with the help of someone like myself, I'm sure. And it's remarkable, really, because once you've got past that point, you're already at view state. So you're already rendering objects, and it gives you a much. So let me So you're already rendering objects. You can obviously do optional validation as you normally would with the traditional website technology. So you're not limited in any way. Although Ravencoin isn't like Ethereum's EVM, actually it makes you work a little bit harder and create a kind of second layer that does stuff. And I appreciate this. It doesn't come out very well on the slides, so perhaps you can review it later. So this is the decentralized film and sharing service that we created using IPFS and Ravencoin. It's essentially using Bitcoin and torrent technology to draw this page, and it could represent some kind of revolution in retail and privacy. Also, obviously, the dereplication that will occur on the IPFS network is like a CDN. So the more people that use it, the more efficient that it becomes. It's a great thing, because it means that we're all using hard disks, we all lose space, and it's very inefficient. You have to buy new ones. What if you didn't have to buy disks? Well, you might be using something like IPFS, you might be using S3 or something like that, but Ravencoin and IPFS allow you to do special things that you couldn't do before, such as encrypting it, or securely distributing it between an IPFS private swarm, which is possible. So how does the film application work? Well, it works pretty much the same way that the corset works. I'm not going to oversell it. And it works pretty much the same way that you'd expect legacy technology to work. Image source, HTTPS, //gateway.ravenland.org. What that is, it's an endpoint. It just allows us to call the IPFS hash. We throw in the IPFS hash here, and all of a sudden it works like a normal legacy website. So you can do websites with Ravencoin fairly easily. This is hopefully what our next revision of the software will look like. It does look a lot like Plex, that's not intentional. So here's actually a technical breakdown for anyone who's interested. That's how you would do this kind of thing in PHP. So you define the unique asset in PHP that you want to retrieve, and then you would define a title based on that unique asset, and then you would decode the URL for the IPFS hash that was contained within, and I'm sure you can see, it's a little bit far back, IPFS hash is contained within it. So not only does it grab the assets from Ravencoin, it also grabs the JSON or any file from IPFS hash as well. And as you can see, JSON, file, get contents, decode URL, that's pretty much it. That's very simple to do, and anyone can do this. We also created a little operating system. It's nothing spectacular, but it basically allows you to run RavenD out of the box and IPFS as well. I'm actually selling these at cost. There isn't any profit in it. They're about 60 euros each. I'm running out of time, but hopefully you can get an insight into how much you can do with Ravencoin. So I'm going to skip a few slides because there's a few redundant ones in here. So we actually created an asset explorer, and I just wanted to show you a little bit how we receive stuff from it. So do feel free to take a picture or review the presentation later, because I do know I have a lot of slides to go through. So this is a SQL query. This is a database that we populated from Ravencoin and IPFS, and it just allows us to keep track of what's going on Ravencoin. This is a little script that I wrote that does that. I won't waste too much time on this. But yeah, just to give you an idea of kind of introduction, programmatic example of how you might retrieve these assets. So this is a very complex piece, but basically all it does, let's get all of the assets from Ravencoin. Let's find out what the IPFS hashes are, and let's put them in a database so we can know what they are. So we started about June 2018. We've expanded quite a lot over that time. We now have, I'd say, about 10, 15 servers to kind of bring these services to you. And many of you might be familiar with the scratch card game that we created just to showcase you what is possible. Obviously, this could be much more than scratch cards. It could be an entire casino game. It could be roulette. It could really be anything that you like. You could run a video rental service from it. You could run, really, kind of the options that you have are unlimited, and the point of this presentation, I hope that you will go away with it, is to see that when it comes to Bitcoin, Ravencoins for Bitcoin and IPFS, there really is some power, and there really is a way to do this in just a few days. We created this application in a few days. So what are our ultimate goals? Create products, show demonstrability, create products before we raise money for our STO, have an honest funding model, and to forward our objective, and also the common stock for all of our holders. We want to give the community open source software, and we kind of want to serve the Ravencoin community and offer this service in public. And that is about it. I'm sure probably quite a few people might have a question to ask, perhaps. No questions? Well, thank you very much for listening. You've been great. You're welcome.
It's good? Okay, thanks. Also, quick note that if you're looking for the presentations, everything will be uploaded to Ravencoin Meet-Up.org, ravencoinmeetup.org, so everything that's here will get uploaded there. And our next speaker, Miles.
Thank you. Everybody, I'm Miles. I'm here to talk on behalf of Zelcore about our relationship with Raven and what we've done so far and what we're looking forward to doing in the future. So Tron actually gave a great overview, so I can skip over this. But he wrote a great Medium article about why the asset layer is better for what ERC20 is usually used for. That's Ethereum's usual ICO token. And now we have ERC223s, 720s, a few different things out there. But they all involve, getting deep, elbow deep in code, and they're not as standardized as Raven's asset layer. I think it's Raven's great strength. If you're wanting to tokenize equity shares, stocks, coupons, tokens, many and much more, Raven's kind of the easy way to do it because it's standardized, and pretty much anyone can do it. It doesn't require any coding knowledge. So I recommend you check out that Medium article. So currently, as Tron mentioned, there's a core client. It's a good core client. It's similar to Bitcoin's Qt core wallet, but it's had a UI overhaul and it's also got the same features that Raven has. Issues with it is it's a little bit clunky in a day and age where everyone has a mobile phone and most people have a thin and light laptop. Having 8 gigabytes, 10 gigabytes of chain data, cleaning your CPU to 100% usage isn't ideal, and although it's a pretty simple UI to use, it's system resource intensive. So, what have we done? Zelcore, we've been working as Zel with a few of the Raven developers on a few different things, and out of conversation, we decided to add the asset layer. That means in our wallet, which is available on all platforms, iOS, Android, Mac, Linux, and Windows, you can store all 19,000 and something Raven assets, as well as a few others, 150 other cryptocurrencies. And we do it in a way where there's no central account system. That means you keep your keys with very sort of strong belief in user privacy and don't want your information, because the best security is when you don't have a central point of failure. So here's it in play. The UI is being released in a sort of initial version. Basically, if you have a Raven asset, you can search for it, or if you already have one, it'll show up, select your asset, and then transact it. And you can do this and log in to your account on multiple devices. So in the future, what we're aiming to do is allow the ability to create assets, kind of removing the need necessarily for the average token issuer to utilize the core client. This should make token issuance a little easier and accessible. I think tokens right now have a good place as sort of a promotional piece. Different websites and services that are within the Raven ecosystem can use them to kind of advertise. But yes, to come. Simple and a little lighter and easy to use than the current core wallet. Other stuff we do with Raven, Zelcore accepts Raven for the Zelcore Plus platform. It's an extended version, so I recommend you can check out Zelcore, just Google Zelcore, or on your Play Store or App Store, you can find us. And so next screen, Zelcore Plus is a little bit more of an extended version of Zelcore. It's got news information, portfolio trackers, also full exchange APIs, you can trade Raven as well as store everything to do with Raven within Zelcore. That's your Binance, I'm sure you've heard of. Bittrex, Kraken, and also the recent Binance DEX, and more. You can do quick swap Raven with some of the quick swap exchanges. You don't have to get into a full UI like this. And yeah, so you can check out Zell at zell.network. Much shorter than Adam's, but it's just a quick overview of who we are, what we do. So thanks for your time, and thanks to the Raven community for having me.
Thanks, Miles. Next up, we'll have a panel discussion led by Michael. Before we have a 5-minute break, and after 5 minutes, we'll continue with our panel discussion and question and answers. Thanks. One comment, everyone who received the CD. 1 second.
Okay, guys, I asked who wanted a CD, and I think we gave out about 60 of them. I hope that if you have a CD, you're here. If you have a CD, raise your hand. Raise your CD. Open it up, and on the front flap, if it says RCG, we actually have a Ravencoin replica here. It's a collector's item. One person will have that. It is right on the flap. If it says RCG, then you are the winner and you do want this coin. So in the event that our winner has left, because you must be present to win, did everybody look? Open up your CD and see if you have it, RCG. It was given out. We have a winner. And this is the one that everybody wants. I'm going to show you what he gets. What just fell is the certificate of authenticity. It is a collector's Ravencoin, available at Ravencoin Shop. Congratulations.
Sorry, I could just add, I brought actually four Ravencoin RPi, Ravencoin OS V2. They're preloaded. If anyone wants to buy one, it's at cost. Yeah, it's at cost. So it's like 60 euros, about 30 euros for the 128 gig SD card, and the other 30 for the Pi.
How many coins it mines per month?
It doesn't mine any points. It's just if you want to help Ravencoin, and
What's up?
thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Let me get it. It is genuinely at cost. Honestly, not basically. Yes, no profit. I mean, if you can see it's like a brand new library and a 128 gig SD card. Yeah. meetings as well.
Testing. Okay, cool. Everybody came in. Sweet. What's going on, everybody? Thank you guys for showing up to the Ravencoin Meet-Up. It's really cool. We're going to get into a couple of just basic questions, specifically questions that we already have listed, and a couple questions I have, and then I'll open it up to the audience and see what questions you guys have. So, good job, everybody. First off, congratulations. I'm glad I have to see my main question is I want to like simplify this to like a very, very basic level. For the people in the audience or even people outside of the audience, like normal day individuals, how does this affect their lives? Like what is this going to be playing a role in their lives in say 5-10 years in the future? This is a question for pretty much open for everybody. Like,
That's a good question, isn't it? You might have to restate. Sorry, go on.
Like, how can this play a role, like in, I guess, adoption in terms of the way that assets work, the way that assets function in the real world? What's kind of your vision of how this all plays into the future of cryptocurrencies as well as beyond cryptocurrencies?
Well, the answer is I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So, so one possibility that can happen, that probably is going to happen faster outside the U.S. than it is inside the U.S., is the ability to fundraise. I mentioned ICOs, STOs. So in some jurisdictions, you can, as long as you kind of block out the U.S. folks, you can. Not completely. There's some rules in various jurisdictions, so I don't want to speak for all jurisdictions. But you can fundraise. You can create these tokens, and you can say, "This is our project. This is what we're trying to do. If you believe in this project," and it brings the barrier of entry down. Whereas it used to be almost impossible to fundraise something where you're taking $1, $2, €1, €5, something like that from somebody. It was impossible if the cost of taking money, recording it in a ledger, putting it in, cashing a check, doing all of the, sending money, wiring money, moving stuff over ACH or SWIFT. Cost of that might be in the tens, $50, $100, and so you can't take $5 and make something profitable, which means that you have to at least have the people invest at a certain higher bar. One thing that digital tokens do and digital money is you can move stuff in not in pennies maybe, but in dollar levels and still have that practical, which means you can have 1 million people invest $1 instead of one person investing $1 million. And I think that may change things significantly. And so I think that's coming, and it'll probably come in different stages depending on the regulations that are in place in various ways. But that unlocks capital, so it allows you to invest the amount of a cup of coffee and invest in a company that may do very, very well. It takes research, but other people can do the research, and you can have things like a Yelp for, which is just people analyzing companies and looking at the founders and things like that. So anyway, I think that's one thing that I think is coming fairly soon.
Sweet. Just to finish my answer, I was just going to say, because it's such an experimental. Since it's such an experimental chain, it's difficult to predict the way that people will use Ravencoin. But I think one thing that's clear is that people are using it, and as soon as banks, assayers, and retailers start to see this, I think there will be a fundamental relationship between the Bitcoin fork known as Ravencoin and assets in a virtual workplace, and it will be just like going from the fax machine to the internet, really. In terms of what it will do for retail and commerce. I think that's a really important takeaway.
I think I should touch on some stuff to what Tron said, where it enables kind of microtransactions that weren't possible before, and maybe I see a future where emerging economies, where traditional banking systems don't want to go because they're too small for transactions and it's so profitable. That's where I see things like Raven and other currencies to see others kind of come into the fray because we've got nations that have hyperinflation or they have a history of that, their governments. So we know the most, people say where's the adoption of crypto? Most of it's actually kind of outside of the Western world. You go further east, you go to Southeast Asia, you go to nations in South America and throughout the African continent. And that's where you find the most crypto daily usage. So I think that's potentially where we can see a growth as you have a lot of emerging nations in
And that's a good point that you make there, Miles, because if you see that kind of relationship, it means that it's better. People that have an option to use one or the other, they are choosing Ravencoin, they are choosing crypto to do these things. And I think that's a really important takeaway from things that Tom was saying about the arrogant bank, the arrogant retailer. I think that we can learn a lot from these kind of use cases, these business scenarios, and perhaps learn something as an investor or even just as a developer or user of the chain.
Cool. And as a developer, how is it working with Ravencoin?
Well, I don't actually actively work on the Ravencoin fork itself, but I write a lot of software around Ravencoin, just providing tooling so that people can explore the asset layer. And we've produced a lot of services that back up and mirrors the entire Ravencoin set. And Miles was saying earlier, there was some cases where files got lost, and we fixed that. And now things are working really nicely. And that's what I meant about kind of experimental, because often the most futuristic things that may eventually get adopted on mainstream, they always start like this. And I think, the 8486 started like this, the internet started like this, nobody could agree how they were going to build it. But it got built. And that's the one thing I'd like people to kind of take away from this.
I think that's one of the powers of Ravencoin is the community, which includes people, a lot of people here. As they find problems, they can submit solutions, and we include them and try to get those out to people. And so it grows kind of beyond what this fairly small team in Utah is doing. It's able to grow a lot faster than what would ordinarily be possible.
And what is the timeline for you guys right now? Like with Ravencoin, with what you guys are building? Like what's the future? What are the next kind of updates that are coming?
And so two of the really big updates are in testnet now, so it's really just testing and making sure that they work and don't break any of the existing features and capabilities. There's a lot of capabilities that already exist, and the coin's been rolling and running, and we just want to make sure we don't break that. The new features are just additive. They add a new token type, a new tagging type, and the ability to send messages and memos with every transaction, which is a fairly interesting feature that a lot of people are actually waiting for.
Awesome. And there's a couple of other questions I have that are specifically listed here. Any partnerships that you guys have that are relevant that the others should know about?
A lot of the partnerships, they get announced on Twitter, so if you follow like at Ravencoin or at Tron Black or at Ravenland, and these things get kind of mirrored and retweeted. That's usually where it comes out first. Website, while it's there and kind of will point you towards the community, probably isn't the best place to get like updates and new information. But Twitter and the Discord and the Telegram will usually mirror those announcements. This last month, it was all about wallets, lots of wallets and a few exchanges were kind of the big partnerships. That just builds the ecosystem. Those were kind of the big flurry of announcements that came up over the last couple of months.
Adam, you were saying that that you don't really know how this is going to be used in the future, which I agree with. Nobody can predict that, right? Yeah. Like it is being used right now. Like how, and this is a question for everybody, but how do you see it being used right now?
Well, I think that the NASDAQ chairman summarized this pretty well. I believe it was the chairman. He said that in his experience, in 10 years, every single stock market epic code will be represented on the blockchain. And if you look carefully at the market cap of cryptocurrency, it's succeeded so much by the securities industry. We'd almost be mad not to kind of at least pay some attention to that. It's trillions, and if you look at the GCap of crypto, it might have grown 50% in the last month or so, but it's still well under half $500 million, hopefully. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
I mentioned it in my presentation, but right now, for Raven as I see it, until there's more work on how it can sort of be, how the issuance of equity shares and those kind of things comes out. But I think right now, Raven Asset Layer is used as a kind of showcase of the tech, and it also showcases and allows people that are in the ecosystem to sort of advertise their brand or what they're doing. So far, that's probably the biggest use case of the Raven Asset Layer right now. But the future, as Adam mentioned, that's a pretty exciting one.
Sweet. And they want me to ask a little bit more about the privacy of Ravencoin. How private is Ravencoin?
We can try to have a conversation about this earlier. What was I going to say?
We did have a conversation. So Ravencoin's privacy is the same as Bitcoin's. So it's not private what funds or tokens are being transferred from address to address. It's whether or not those addresses are associated with individuals. So the way Bitcoin's privacy works is there's an address. You own an address. An address is just a big, large random number. You can make up a new one if you want a new one. You can keep one. It's a big, large random number. You get an address. It's like your the big, long random number is your ability to spend from that account, and the generating from that long random number is your address, and that's where people can send or deposit either Raven or tokens. As long as that information isn't associated in the database somewhere or public, then it's private in that sense. There are more private technologies, more privacy, and that is what we were talking about with Miles. Zelcash and Zcash and Monero and some of these other technologies do make it more difficult to see transfers from one address to another, whereas in Bitcoin and including Ravencoin, you can see every transfer from every address to every address, all the way back up to the origin of the issuance of the token that you've created or the issuance of the Raven by the miners, which is where Raven comes from, gets issued from. And all of that is visible. It's just that there are big, long addresses that usually aren't associated with individuals.
You got it quite well.
Yeah. Cool. And I want to leave the last 10 minutes for Q&A with the audience. Does anybody have any questions?
Wait, I have a question, and I would like an as objective answer as possible, because obviously that will be more difficult. Let's say I want to launch an STO, ICO, or whatever, and I would say, okay, but why should I choose Ravencoin as a theory? Could you give me plausible reasons and also contra arguments at this stage of development?
Sure. So one of the advantages is it's just really easy. You can just basically go and get the wallet, create your token, and you're done. Anyone who wants to hold those assets themselves can basically grab any of the wallets that we're talking about today, and any of the ones that support assets, which includes Zelcore Wallet, that includes all of the ones that we've developed, and you can just transfer right there. So kind of ease of use. The competing technology is ERC20. Has some advantages. So this is your contra argument. Has some advantages in the ecosystems and some of the DEXs and things like that. If it's on chain on ERC20 and on chain, it has some advantages being able to trade in some DEXs without having to do some sort of federated move over to that chain. But it's also kind of confusing. You have a contract ID, which represents the token. 10 other people could choose the same name of the token that you have, and then you have to distinguish it by a contract ID. So there's more kind of opportunities for spoofing. One of the advantages of Ravencoin is that the assets are all uppercase and all guaranteed unique. So you can't have two Ubers or two tokens with the same name, so there's no confusion there. So those are the advantages. I just want to add, Ravencoin.shop made more gifts available, and we wanted to stimulate the discussion so people can come up with questions, and we will give some more extra gifts from the Ravencoin.shop.
Got a question.
Okay, first of all, to not misunderstand, I love the idea of Raven. I would like to ask if one of the project of Raven goes really well, and if you and all the crypto money creator realize that you're printing currency, and that if one of the project goes really well, and that it goes to a global level, would you see yourself as a global currency distributor?
Yeah, I can answer that. So no, the miners are actually generating. So it's not like we start with a bucket of Raven and ask for money. In fact, that's one of the unique things about Raven is it wasn't an ICO. There was no pre-mine. There's no developer set aside. It's a project that, like Bitcoin, kind of started up, and so it's the miners that actually get that.
So exactly in that perspective, that a project goes so well that the Raven become the medium, the tool that the people have chosen for any kind of exchange of commodity, then you become again a currency supply.
Not the technology is the currency supplier for the global world. That'd be awesome. That'd be great. But it's actually the technology and the miners that are doing it. There is no, again, it's not. We're not issuing it. The technology is allocating it to those mining pools, miners, people who are solving the problems, validating the chain, are receiving the Raven first.
So on your side, if the project goes and really the Raven would be used commonly, you would not interfere in the way people would use it.
Yeah, the software controls.
Software control, but not on the principle at all, on the balance of a nation.
Yeah, I mean the market sets the price and the software issues the currency. I think that's kind of the way Bitcoin works, and then by extension, it's the way Raven works as well.
So you don't believe that one day if crypto was really strong, that would actually destroy the money or the currency, the fiat currency, and that everybody will purely rely on crypto?
I think that'd be a wonderful thing to happen. I do. That's more philosophical, I think, maybe. But I don't think it will happen.
Not even in these 60 years or 100 years?
I don't think it will happen, but I think it would solve some bigger world problems.
Never say never.
We have governments like we have now, and no, it won't happen.
Right there.
You mentioned the difference between ERC20 and assets from the Ravencoin chain. In ERC20, Ethereum uses smart contracts, and Ravencoin doesn't. But I understand that the smart contracting can be written in any language. If you interact with the chain, you can move assets. You have to build in your own technology to trigger on sensors or something, but then you can have smart contracts. Is that right? Or
yeah, I mean it's possible to add RSK or rootstock to Ravencoins built on Bitcoin, so that's a possibility. A lot of the smart contracts are just the ERC20 template, right, which is just one smart contract, and all it does is issue and transfer, which is what the Ravencoin assets do, is issue and transfer. So it's the 80% of, I don't know what the exact percentage of these smart contracts are running. Most of them are ERC20 or similar, or ERC721, which is what we would call in Ravencoin unique assets. And then also there's some ones that are extending ERC20 to handle compliance, and that's kind of handled by tags and restricted assets. So we're kind of covering a lot of what smart contracts can do, but obviously not all. All the edge cases, all the stuff that goes outside those, 80% would have to be written in smart contracts, and maybe is better suited for Ethereum or one of the other smart contracts.
Yeah, I was going to add something to that. I forgot what it was. So I think I'll pass. That's the safe thing to do.
We got like one or two more questions. Good question.
Sorry, I'm probably not meant to ask questions because I meant to run the mic. But this may be a silly question, but where do you keep the big long number?
That's an excellent question. That big long number needs to be kept by whoever's holding the coin. And in case of the core wallets, that big long number is stored in the wallet.dat on the computer. In the case of the mobile wallets, it's stored in the TPM, which is the trust module or the section of chip on your phone on the Android or iOS. And it's stored there because it's more safer from being looked at by other apps that happen to be on the phone. So you want to keep that big long number secret. The 12 words that you write down is actually a 12 words that can generate that number. And so it generates it the same way every time. That way, if your phone fell in a lake, right, goes to the bottom, you don't have that anymore. You can get another phone, put in the 12 words, it generates the same long number from those 12 words. And the long number is so large, it's roughly the number of atoms in the known universe, 10 to the 77th power, like 10 with 77 zeros after it. Very, very large number, so it's not going to be guessed. Even if you tried to guess and start guessing, you kind of run out of sun before that was possible. Is basically the security of Bitcoin and most of the other cryptocurrencies. And so storing that number is super, super important, and we tried to simplify it as much as possible. And right now, the best I've seen, the most convenient I've seen, is writing down 12 words, storing that somewhere really, really safe where you keep your documents somewhere away from other people, and then generating the bigger, slightly bigger number from that.
One more question. Anybody got one last question?
Hi, John. It's a question for you. Are you thinking about adding the possibility to make privacy coins on Ravencoin?
So yeah, it's been talked about. In fact, it was talked about yesterday. It's certainly possible. I know even Bitcoin is looking at doing those things and some derivatives of Bitcoin. That makes it easier for us if someone else does it first. And I'm sure we can certainly extend it. Certainly possible. You have to pick one of the technologies, and one area uses different technology from Zcash, from Grid. They use different ways of doing it. It's certainly possible to add.
Cool, guys. Looks like we're out of time. Thank you guys for coming to the Ravencoin little meetup, and I hope you guys joined along. Thanks for your topic, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
And that's it for our meetup. Special thanks for the speakers and also Michael from Elevated District, which advises companies, crypto companies on communication and branding. And thanks everyone.